Have you ever thought about your relationships as an actual law of physics? Well, let's dive into this explainer and explore something truly fascinating, the Grace-Harmonic Covenant. What we're doing here is taking a highly abstract, math-heavy framework from physics and computing and using it to map out the deeply human journey of how imperfect people love, forgive, and grow. It's really about translating the messy, beautiful reality of shared human struggle into the precise, unforgiving language of physics. And trust me, it works surprisingly well. I want to anchor our entire journey today on this one incredibly powerful quote from the source material. Perfection is never the price, growth is the key that turns the lock. Keep that in the back of your mind as we go. This entire model is essentially built to mathematically prove what our hearts kind of already know, that relationships aren't about never failing. They're about how we turn back toward each other when we do.
So, here is our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at the physics of love, the weight of shame, grace that demands growth, the entangled heart, and finally, the eternal signature.
Okay, let's jump right into part one, the physics of love.
The source defines a relationship as a covenant medium. So actually, scratch that old cliché about two halves seeking a whole. Instead, think of partners like magnetic materials forming a co-created living field. When these two hearts couple together, each one's alignment literally lends strength to the other. They hold their alignment, even when they're subjected to really intense external strain.
What's wild is how this framework turns the everyday struggle of temptation into a literal mathematical variable. Think of the reversing field as the active pull of a stressful day or taking the easy way out. It's constantly trying to flip your alignment back to a low, easy state. But then you have the pinning factor, the resistance of a single forged heart just absolutely refusing to cave in. The reversing field isn't actually the enemy here. It's the very resistance that forges the heart's strength in the first place.
And this perfectly illustrates that forging process in action. Repeatedly turning back toward your partner, what the source calls re-entering the cycle faithfully, actually work hardens the heart. Even though that opposing field literally never relents, your remnants, meaning your kept alignment, rises with every faithful cycle. You build resilience not by avoiding the pull, but by choosing to return over and over again.
Moving on to part two, the weight of shame. Because let's be real, inevitably, we fall. And when we fail, we experience shame. Hidden shame acts as a compounding drag on the system. It literally pins our misalignment and just makes everything worse. But look at how the math handles this. A reverent witness, which simply means a partner listening without judgment, acts as a releasing field. It directly subtracts from that heavy load of shame. By bringing failure out into the open light of a reverent medium, the effective shame load is lowered and the recovery process can actually begin.
Which brings us to part three, grace that demands growth.
Here's the pivotal twist in all of this. Grace? It is not a blank check. True love provides a releasing field that fosters movement and holds space for a partner's potential. But if trust just dissolved all that shame with zero expectations attached, it would basically become a license for stagnation. You'd just be subsidizing a partner who refuses to try, and the system would collapse.
The math actively reflects this boundary by introducing a growth vector. Grace scales directly with the observable growth of the one who fell. If they make absolutely zero effort, if that growth drops to zero, a self-protection term begins to accumulate. In human terms, that's emotional distance. It's boundaries actively shielding the relationship from being destroyed.
You can clearly see what happens when there's zero growth. The relief just hits an absolute wall, and the emotional load aggressively climbs to protect the medium. But when there is growth, the effective shame load actually drops below zero. It's brilliant. The relationship beautifully rewards return while firmly resisting exploitation.
This is the ultimate outcome of that conditional grace. Over multiple faithful cycles, an eternal signature accumulates. But again, only if there is growth. Without it, absolutely nothing is deposited. It's the active turning back that leaves a permanent, beautiful imprint on the relationship. All right, let's step into part four, the entangled heart. Now, I need to clarify something right off the bat. This isn't literal macroscopic physics. You don't actually have quantum particles entangling in your chest. Instead, the source uses this as a poetic, resonant bridge. It's simply the most accurate vocabulary we have to describe a human bond so incredibly deep that two people can no longer be described in isolation. Look at how this non-separable bond functions.
Just like in tangled quantum systems, temptation striking one heart is felt non-locally by the other. And beautifully, when a partner names their hidden shame out loud, that reverent witness collapses the probability. Instead of destroying the bond, the shame instantly transforms or collapses into a rising, healing shared connection.
And finally, Part 5, the eternal signature. This concept is just absolutely stunning to me. It points out how the energy from a couple's shared struggle isn't just lost as exhausted heat. Every single time a fall is met with reverent witness and growth, it adds binding energy. It physically twists the shared experience into a beautiful, eternal helix. Nothing brought into the light is ever wasted.
And this breaks down just how deep that goes. Every strand of the mundane relationship, like basic body safety or a shared story, is upgraded. They go from being basic tools that just help you survive a tough season into an instrument that plays an eternal frequency. Shared suffering literally becomes the mechanism for a higher resonance.
Okay, don't let the calculus freak you out. Just look at the story this equation tells. The integral is simply adding up grace over time. It tells us that goodness actually needs the shadow's tension to resonate. The medium supplies the safety, the fallen heart supplies the return, and the fall itself supplies the raw material. Our very failures are exactly what write the higher harmony.
But hey, if equations aren't really your language, the source maps this out as a visual equation using chromatics too. It brings everything together on one canvas. The steel of a forged wheel under load, the living pink of a beating heart, threaded with the vein violet of grace and entanglement. And all of it is scaled by reverence gold set against the deep void of a timeless ground.
We've covered some incredibly dense, abstract concepts today. But ultimately, all of this math collapses into a singular, piercing human question. When you fall down, don't you want the chance to get back up? That is the Grace-Harmonic Covenant. It's not a demand for perfection, but an unyielding grace that waits for your active return. So take a look at your own relationships today. Are you providing a releasing field for the people you love? And when you fall, are you doing the work to turn back and write your eternal signature?